Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Green again. This is another in the series of Algebra 2 lessons that I'm giving you. I'm just going to continue on with Unit 3. You should have completed everything in Unit 2. And in Unit 3, we're talking about functions. And what we're talking about now is the functions of equations, function equations, okay? We're going to use function notation to evaluate functions for a given value, and we're going to draw a graph of a function and or determine its domain and range. Those are the things we're going to try to cover in this lesson. When I talk about functional notation or function notation, what we're talking about doing is taking the y out of the equations. Okay? Why? I don't know, except it's just a way that mathematicians use to refer to functions. If we use the concept of writing a letter f with x behind it in parentheses, simply saying f of x, as our function, it's telling everyone we have a function. Separates it from relations, makes it a little bit easier for mathematicians to know what's going on. F of x tells you what the variable is going to be in that equation. Okay? What's the variable? It's going to be x. The function of x is the function with x as the variable. Solved a couple of problems. One, we know it's a function, don't have to go into that anymore. And two, it tells us what variable we're looking for in that equation. Okay? So here we go. If I give you the fact that y equals x minus 2, we can also write that as f of x equals x minus 2. Means the same thing, okay? This and this mean the same thing. Replace the y with f of x. Notice how it says f of x. X is the variable. Well, we've got an x in our equation over here, okay? If we want to find f of 4, what am I going to do? I'm going to replace that 4 in for the x. It's where it is right now, right here in this function here. It's replaced with a 4. So if I'm going to replace this x with a 4, 4 minus 2 is, well, yeah, we got that one. That one's 2. That's the way you solve the value. That's the way you find the value of a function when they give it to you. Let's try a couple. G of s. Wait a second, Mr. Green, you switched letters on me. Functions don't have to always be f. They could be anything, any letter you see there, any script letter you see there, followed by parentheses and a variable inside of them. So this is g of s, and that means it's a function of variable s, and the function is 2s plus 3, and they want to find the value of g of negative 2. We're going to take that negative 2 and put it in for the s. So 2 times negative 2 plus 3. Well, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 plus 3, and that's going to be equal to negative 1. So what is g of negative 2? Negative 1. It's that simple. It's not intended to be difficult. It's intended to be simple to follow. It's when they start getting into things like this that it gets a little bit difficult. H of x, probably a function of height based upon x, how far out it's gone. So the height of x is represented by x squared minus x plus 7. And they're sticking 2c in. Can they do that? Why, of course they can. They can simply come along and stick 2c in here and 2c in here, 2c. And all we've got to do is look at this and say, they're squaring it. That means they want to get rid of that, so we're going to take 2 times 2, that's 4c squared minus 2c, that's a 2. There really is a 2. 2c plus 7. That's the way you would write that equation out. And that's the way you would value that function for the value h, or for the value 2c. Okay? So I've got my pad out this time because it's going to get more difficult. If we were wanting to evaluate the function of k, that means I'm looking for a variable k in here, and there it is right there. K squared minus 3. And I want to find f of a minus 1. I'm going to stick a minus 1 in for k, so that's going to be a minus 1 squared minus 3. Oh my gosh. That means I have to do this FOIL method. Remember that from Algebra 1 FOIL? First, outer, inner, last. You might have done it in a little table like this. I mean, I've seen it done both ways. A and -1, A and -1. A times A is A squared. -1, that's negative A, and that's a negative A. And that one is a positive 1, so I'm going to get an A squared minus 2A plus 1. If you did it with FOIL, you probably got the same answer. All works out the same. So what have I got? I've got A squared minus 2A plus 1 minus 3. So I have to simplify that a little bit, and I get A squared minus 2A minus 2. That's the way you evaluate a function. Even if it's got another expression that goes in here, it can be done. You just have to follow it through and simplify it all the way down. So, a little bit of vocabulary. In a function, the input is the independent variable and the output is the dependent variable. Okay? Independent, dependent. In this equation right here, in this function, f of x, 3x minus 4. The value of f of x depends upon what the value chosen for x is. In other words, the output depends upon the input. So f of x depends upon what value of x you're looking for. They're dependent that way. Let's look at a couple things in English. Here's a situation, and I want you to help me figure out which variable is independent and which one is dependent. I'm going to give you the variables at the end. People with master's degree earn more money than people with bachelor's degrees. People with bachelor's degrees earn more money than people who did not graduate from college. The variables in this situation are education level and income. So, here's the question you ask. Is the income level dependent upon the education level, or is the education level dependent upon the income? It's not talking about what it costs to go to college, it's talking about how much they earn after college. So the income they're talking about there is how much you'll earn after college. So the dependent variable in this situation is income. It depends on what your independent variables, your education, is your independent. Okay? Your income depends upon what your education level was. So your independent variable is your education, your dependent variable is your income. Okay? Let's look at this other one. Bretta studied for 2 hours for her mathematics test, but only 1 hour for her biology test. She received a 90 on her math test and an 88 on her biology test. The variables are amount of time spent studying and grade on the test. So, does the amount of time you spend studying depend upon the grade you make? Or does the grade you make depend upon the amount of time you spent studying? I think everyone's going to agree the grade depends upon the time you spend studying. So the grade is the dependent variable. It depends. The time is the independent. Okay? Now, big clue when you're looking at these things, almost always if time is one of the variables that you're dealing with, time doesn't depend upon anything. It's usually the independent variable. Very rarely does time depend on anything at all. Okay? For example, your distance that you go is not dependent upon on your time. Your distance is dependent upon the time that you're spending to travel. It isn't the other way around. The time isn't dependent upon the distance. So, you always want to make certain you're making time your independent variable. Okay? Now, don't forget, if you're sending me K-mails, talking to me, make certain you tell me you're in Algebra 2. I've got 3 or 4 different classes going on, and it's difficult to keep track of who's in who. So I want you to keep telling me where you're at so I can find your records and help you with issues very, very quickly. And I look forward to seeing you next time I see you.